Uh, Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining our meeting. And I am Anuhas Chamathsara. I am the president of this group, and I will be doing the meeting today. And today we are going to do about marshland habitat. So, marshland habitat is one of the most sensitive habitats of planet Earth, and so we are teaching this to you, so you can also give some hand in conserving them. So, here's the introduction. Marshland habitat is one of the most sensitive and threatened birds ecosystems of the whole world. It is also home to world's most elusive birds, waders and seabirds. They're not colorful as forest birds, but they still got a lot to show. They still have many more interesting features. And this lecture is, as I told you about earlier, is dedicated to give some knowledge about these ecosystems so you can give a hand to conserve them. Now let's first see what is a marshland. As I said earlier, marshland are one of the most sensitive ecosystems on Earth. This is because they are run by some of the most endangered plant and animal species of the world. Marshland comes in different types and in different places. Mostly marshlands are located near sea, a river, or a lagoon. Well, if you take overall some kind of water body. Uh, Now, these are some examples. Wankale marshland means the Mena marshland is associated with the sea, and the Muthurajavala marshland is associated with the Urwal Oya and the Nigambo lagoon. So, some animal and plant species of other ecosystems also, interact with these marshland habitats. For example, seagulls and terns from the coastal habitats and mangrove plants from mangrove habitats also can be also seen in the marshland habitat. Now, there are great advantages of marshlands. They help preventing floods by absorbing water during rainy seasons. Hence, that's how they got their nickname, sponges of the world. Now, how does a marshland works? So in this diagram, it shows you well, this is how a marshland works. Polluted water and expelled extra water come from upper stream, and this is the marshland. This peat, saturated and dirty water get collected and filtered by marshlands, and the rest flows to the sea as pure, clean water. So, see, this is another advantage of marshlands because they purifies water. These days it's kind of hard to find purified water. So let's see what are the types of marshlands. Well, marshlands can be categorized into three parts according to the medium of water which they interact with. So there are saltwater marshland, freshwater marshland, and brackish water marshland. So let's see what's a saltwater marshland first. So what is a saltwater marshland? Saltwater marshland is a type of marshland that is associated with the sea because sea is one of the main about the sea is the only marine water body with a concentration of high concentration of salts. So saltwater marshlands are associated with sea. They receive water during the night when the tide is high. The high tides arrives. It floods the marshland temporarily, and then the daytime the low tide comes and the water flows back, and some of the some water gets trapped in the marshland. This water With these waters, some small aquatic invertebrates and fish also get trapped. So because of that, large flocks of waders, water birds, waterfowls, and other seabirds, uh, arrive to this marshland. So these are some examples for saltwater marshlands. The Wankale wetland, it's actually a very popular wetland in Sri Lanka. It's located in a Mannar, in the Mannar Island, between the causeway. Uh, it's a very rich place to watch wading birds and other water birds. I suggest that you should go to this place when this pandemic is over. And there is this Chundikulam Bird Sanctuary. It's also a wetland in Sri Lanka. Uh, this marshland is located in the Jaffna Peninsula, uh, in the near Mullative, and this is Marine Park. It's not from Sri Lanka; it's from USA. This Bloody Marsh, this is called the Bloody Marsh. It's also from the USA. So this is a diagram, and it shows the parts of a saltwater marsh. This is the submerged area. So in this area of the marsh, it's submerged by water. So only large stalks and waterfowls, like waterfowls means ducks, geese, and swans. They feed in this area because they can access it easily. Small wading birds can be seen in this area because they have short legs and they can't swim. And we have the tidal mudflat. In this area, it's rich with small aquatic, say invertebrates, crustaceans, mostly crustaceans. This area is rich and very full with small wading birds like red shanks, sandpipers, flowers, etc. Because its diet composes of small crustaceans and small aquatic um, invertebrates. Now this is the low marsh. It also only get flooded at high tide. In this area, there are some places, some water pools. This areas, small wading birds are also rich in these areas. Not just small wading birds, egrets and other storks are also rich in this area. Then goes to the high marsh with salt plains. Now these areas have salt flats, filled with salt, because only high tides get reached to it, and the water that get traps in them actually gets evaporated. So leaving the salt behind. So you can find salt in these areas. Uh, there's not much animals in this area because it has highly concentrated salt. And this is the transitional area. This uh, this is the boundary of the wet part of the marshland to the dry part, and there are only small bushes in area here. And this is the ground area. The water never reaches here. Well, if you take these areas, other animal species, mammals and forest birds live in here. Now let's see what's a freshwater marsh. Now, what is a freshwater marsh? Freshwater marshland is a type of marshland that is associated with freshwater bodies. Now, the saltwater marshland is with the sea, and freshwater marshlands are associated with freshwater bodies. It could be a river, could be a pond, or it could be a lake, could be a tank, man-made reservoir. One way or another way, it should be a freshwater body. They receive water during rainy season when the nearby freshwater body floods or expels more water. During this period, different types of freshwater fish, crustaceans, and insects gather and get trapped. Because of this, large flocks of waterfowls and some other types of vertebrate species come to these places. But if you take wading birds, only large waders come to here. The reason, because And small crustacean need some salt to live on. And because these are freshwater bodies and there's not much salt in them, small crustacean, small aquatic crustaceans and aquatic invertebrates are a bit rare in freshwater marshlands. So small wading birds don't come here because they can't find their diet, which is just those aquatic crustaceans and insects. Only large waders like storks. There are storks, herons, and cranes. They only them come to these places because their diet consists of fish, and yes, fish are much richer in freshwater marshlands. Now, here are some examples for freshwater marshlands. This Muthurajula marshland is one of the most famous marshlands in Sri Lanka. Parts of it, the eastern part of it is actually freshwater. The western part of it is actually brackish water one because it's more related to the Nikamba Lagoon. And there's Bellangwilla Sanctuary. It's in Colombo. Very one of the, it's very full with wading birds. You can see many wading birds, not wading birds, sorry, waterfowls and other water birds like griffons. And Anavilunda wetland. It's also, this is actually a Ramsar wetland, not just a wetland. So Anavilunda is a Ramsar wetland. So it's very special. And part of it, like just like the Muthurajula, part of the Anavilunda wetland is freshwater, while some parts of it are a little bit brackish. This is Tiffany, and this is the Tiff Nature Reserve. It's not from Sri Lanka. It's from, again, USA. Now, this is a parts of a freshwater marshland. It's quite similar to the parts of, brackish water marshlands because it's almost the same because they have lower salt concentrations compared to, saltwater marshes. There's not much parts in here. There's this submerged part, and there's the emergent part. Now, the difference with the saltwater and brackish freshwater marshland is that in freshwater marshland, you can see aquatic plants even in the submerged area. The reason is because salt water is some kind of toxic, bit toxic to, high concentration of salt is big toxic to some plants. That's why you can't see many plants in saltwater marshes, while you can see many in freshwater marshes. So there are many forest birds related to these areas too. Now let's look at a brackish water marsh. Now, brackish water marshland is a marshland type of marshland that receives most of its water from a lagoon or another brackish water body. These marshlands does not actually have definite periods of receiving water. Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, the saltwater marshes gets their water during the high tide, and the freshwater marshes get their water during kind of rainy season when the freshwater body floods or expels more water. But in brackish water marshland, there's no clear period. It's maybe sometimes it gets water and sometimes it does not. And now these marshes have actually the ideal condition for small aquatic crustaceans and small invertebrates to grow. So these marshlands are full with small waders. They flock them, and not just small waders. Large waders also come to these areas because these areas are full with very rich with brackish water fish. Seabirds are a bit rare in here. I don't know why. And if you take brackish water marshland, there are Muthurajula marshland, which is part of it is, I told you, it was a brackish, and Chundikalam Sanctuary, it also has a part that is bit brackish rather than salt water. Anavilunda wetland also have brackish water area, and Kalamati wetland, which is related with the Kalamati lagoon. This is one of the best places of Sri Lanka to see birds too, alongside with the Mena marshland. Now let's see birds that can be seen in these marshlands. Birds that can be seen in saltwater marshlands. Now these birds, I'm not telling these birds can be only seen in saltwater marshlands, but they are common in these areas. Now this is the common red shank, there's common green shank, and there's this bird Eurasian curlew, wood sandpiper, northern pintail, Eurasian region, northern shala, painted stork. And if you take freshwater marshes, there's the purple heron, common kingfisher, stork-billed kingfisher, purple swamp hen, common moorhen, pleasant-tailed jacana, lesser whistling duck, gargany. And if you take brackish water marshes, purple heron again, greater cormorant, gray heron, wood sandpiper, common red shank, painted stork, lesser whistling duck, and garland. I'll show you some pictures to you. Now, these are birds that can be seen in saltwater marshlands. Now, this is a marsh sandpiper. It's a bit common migrant. You can see these guys in saltwater marshes like Wonkale and Chundikulam, Wonkale, Chundikulam, and Boondale marshlands during the migrating season, because this is a migrant bird. This is the common red shank. It is also a migrant bird, and it is also can be seen in saltwater marshes. And you can also see this one in brackish water marshlands too. This is the northern pintail. It is also a migrant bird. It also can be seen in it can be seen in all three marshlands, from saltwater, brackish water, and freshwater. Now the Eurasian region is actually a bit restricted to the saltwater marshland. It's kind of rare bird than these. It's also a migrant. It's a more rare migrant. This is the Eurasian curlew. Now this is also a bird that is restricted to saltwater marshlands. It is also a migrant bird, and it is also one of the largest wading birds too. And this is the painted stork. It's a common one. It can be seen not just marshlands, in other habitats too. You can even see them in paddy fields. And this is glossy ibis. Glossy ibis is also a bit rare in Sri Lanka. It's not easy to see, but these days it has been a bit common in Mannar. I don't know why. Maybe they have bred in many recently. And there's the northern shoveler, and now this is also a very rare duck species, and it also confused to the mallard. It is also another duck species, but this one is a bit smaller to them. And I actually don't have a picture of a mallard to show you what kind of bird it is. Now this one is also restricted to saltwater marshlands. Now there's a common feature of most birds, and if you take it overall, most birds in saltwater marshlands are migrant birds. These marsh sandpiper, common red shank, northern pintail, Eurasian region, Eurasian curlew, and northern shoveler. Those 6 birds actually migrants. So if you take if you take birds overall, most of the birds in saltwater marshes are migrant birds. Let's see birds that can be seen in freshwater marshlands. It's well, if you take brackish water marshland, it's also the same. It's almost the same. Purple there. Now, if you take the birds, the purple heron is a very common heron. You can even see them, or you can only see them in freshwater and brackish water wetlands. I've never seen them in saltwater marshlands. Yeah, then there's the common kingfisher. It's also can be seen in brackish water and freshwater marshlands. The purple swamp hen, it is also restricted to these areas. And the common moorhen is also, but this bird is not restricted to the freshwater and brackish water. These guys can be seen in saltwater marshlands too, but not in huge numbers. This is the little egret. It's very common. You can see it almost everywhere, even in gardens. And this is the stalk-billed kingfisher. Now, this is a specialty in this kingfisher. This is one of the most rare. It's also a rare kingfisher in Sri Lanka, and it is also the largest kingfisher in Sri Lanka. And this kingfisher is also restricted to brackish water and freshwater marshlands. Now, this is the lesser whistling duck. Now, this bird can be also seen in small groups in saltwater marshlands and in large flocks in other, brackish water and freshwater marshlands. And this is the peasant-tailed jacana. It can be also seen in, freshwater and brackish water, but not much in saltwater. Now let's see some seabirds. I told you earlier that seabirds means seagulls and terns also interact with the marshland habitat. So these are some seabirds that can be seen in marshlands. Now this tern with the red bill is called the Caspian tern, and for your note, this is the largest species of tern in Sri Lanka. And this is the gull-billed tern, much common. You can, if you see them if you go through a paddy field and much calmer paddy field, which is far away from urban areas, if you might be able to see them in the migrating season, the gull-billed tern. And you can see then there's the brown-headed gull. This is more one restricted to the saltwater marshlands. It's a brown-headed gull, means this is a seagull, and this is the great crested tern. This is a very common bird in saltwater marshes. You can see them in Adams Region National Park too, but I think it's close. I think it's not. They don't let tourists into that national park. And this is the black-headed gull. It's also a bit like the brown-headed gull. It is also can be seen in saltwater marshlands. So thank you for joining our meeting, and thank you for listening it well too. I'm pretty sure you got knowledge about marshland habitats. If you could share with your friends too. If you like to help our group get earn more members, please share our group in with persons so if you have any questions, please send them in from the chat box. There's a question: is the famous national park Kumana considered as a marshland? Yes, it is a marshland. It's actually a brackish water marshland, I think. Yeah, but it's sometimes sometimes considered as a swamp. There's a difference between swamps and marshlands. Swamp is a wetland that has tall trees in the middle of it. I can just tell it to you. I have to show it with illustrations. Wait. So I guess you can see my screen now. Can you see my screen? Excuse me, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see Anuhas.
Okay, now this is a swamp. Actually, common is a bit like this. I'm not telling it doesn't have marshland. It also have marshland. Now this is a swamp. Swamps actually have trees, very large trees, not small ones, very tall ones in the middle of it. Now, if you take a marshland, this is a marshland. It doesn't have large trees; only have grasslands. So, if you speak common, there are also areas like this, and there are also areas like swamps. So it can just can't you can't just tell it full marshlands. It's a mixture between marshlands and swamps. Any more questions? What are the identification features of northern pintail and northern shoveler? Okay, let me show you a northern pintail. Wait. Hello. Can you see? I think you can see my screen. Could you? Hello, Arosha. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see.
I think then others can too. So now this is a northern pintail. It's a male northern pintail. Actually, the female is a bit different, but the male is more easier to identify. Now it's easy because it has a brown head and this white neck and breast area, and it also have a pointed long tail. It's the main feature. Northern shoveler is now this is the northern shoveler. The male is greenish, and this is what the northern shoveler looks like. I had to tell it very quick. This is the female of northern shoveler because we only have less than 1 minute. I think we'll have to join again. So let's see. Do you have any more questions? Because we are running out. Wait a minute. I'll share the screen. Wait. Hello, Harusha. Could you see my Harusha? Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see.
It is visible, right? Okay. Now this is a common kingfisher. This is the second common type of kingfisher in Sri Lanka. It's called the Malpilihudwa in Sinhala. Now this is the white-throated kingfisher. In Sinhala, it's called the Gelesudu Pilihudwa. It's the most common one. I told you before. You can almost see them in almost everywhere in Sri Lanka, even in gardens. It's one of the most common. Now I'll show you the stalk-billed kingfishers. Sorry, there were some typing mistakes. Okay, now this is the stork-bill kingfisher. It's the largest kingfisher of Sri Lanka. Now, the name of this kingfisher, the local Sinhala name is Mana Tudu Pilihudua. It's called the stork-bill kingfisher because its beak is much similar to the shape of the beak of a stork. And then we have black sorry black black-capped not black-capped kingfisher. Now this is the black-capped kingfisher. It is one of the two migrant species of kingfishers in Sri Lanka. Now, this is the second largest kingfisher too. This is also the second largest kingfisher. It's also very beautiful one. Actually, this is the second rarest kingfisher of Sri Lanka. And I'll show you the other migrant kingfisher. Now this is the blue-eared kingfisher. Now there's one thing I have to tell you, that this bird actually looks almost the same to the common kingfishers. Now the common kingfisher, actually there is a one way to distinguish. So you see this area between this white stripe and its eye. Now in common kingfisher, this area is actually orange, reddish orange in color, while in blue-eared kingfisher it's actually blue. So that is the only way to distinguish them. And if you take the blue-eared kingfisher status in Sri Lanka, it's actually a very scarce migrant bird, rarely seen. It is the rarest species of kingfisher in Sri Lanka. Now let's go to the last species of kingfishers in Sri Lanka. It is one of them. It's very beautiful one. I'll show you. Oriental dwarf kingfisher. Now this is called the Oriental dwarf kingfisher. As you can see, it's a very colorful bird. It's, even though it is a water bird, it's actually more like a forest bird, very colorful. It's very rare because most water birds, if you take, they're not colorful. They're like they're mostly coming colors of gray and white, but this one has purple, red, yellow, orange, very colorful one. This is also a very small kingfisher. It's actually a resident one. This one is normally seen in the dry zone. Oh, and I forgot to mention the singular name of the black-capped kingfisher and the black-capped kingfisher and the black-capped kingfisher and the blue-eared kingfisher. The black-capped kingfisher's local singular name is Anuhas Chamathsara, and the blue-eared singular name is blue-eared kingfisher singular name is actually Ilkam Pilihudua. Actually, I don't remember the local singular name of the Oriental dwarf kingfishers that much. That's the problem. And so that is the 7 species of kingfishers in Sri Lanka. Yeah. Oh yeah. There's another question. What are the types of storks in Sri Lanka? Okay. Now there are storks. Family of stork is called the Siconidae. It's one of the now the specialty of Siconidae, the storks family is storks are one of the largest flying birds in the world. The largest birds are the ostriches and its relatives, but the largest flying birds, one of the largest flying birds, includes to the family of Siconiformes. So that's the specialty of them, and there are some species in Sri Lanka too. Now, the most common one, as I know it, is the painted stork. Will I show you? Wait, I'll show you. Hello, can you see my screen? Hello, Arosha, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see.
I think the others can see too. So this is the painted stork. Now, if you take or lolly, this is the most common species of storks in Sri Lanka. It is also actually it's a medium-sized stork, not large compared to the other stork species in the world. And this is in locally in single name. It is called the Latuekia. It can be seen in almost everywhere in island except the hill country. Now, the other type of stork I'm going to show you will be the woolly neck stork. Now, this is the woolly neck stork. Now, this bird is actually a bit rare and actually a bit larger than the painted stork. Actually, the woolly neck stork can be only seen in the dry zone of Sri Lanka. It's rarely seen in wet zone, but not much in the dry. But mostly seen in dry zone. Actually, and it has never been seen in the hill country. And it is also another specialty. These storks have never been seen in the hill country of Sri Lanka. It's actually, I think the altitude is some kind of problem to them. Now, the other type of stork I'm going to show you is the Asian open bill. Now, you might get what is the meaning of open bill. Now this peak is the reason why it got its name, because even when it's closed, you can see the other side from this bill. Now this is called the Asian open bill. It is also a very small stork, about the same size as the you know uh, painted stork. Actually, this is also a very common one alongside with the painted stork, but bit rarer than it. Not much. You, Now the specialty of this is this this guy only feeds in areas which have oysters in them. So if you see one of these birds in a marsh or in a paddy field, that means that that area is filled with oysters, because it's the main diet. As you can see this picture, it's not clear, but you can see that it's eating an oyster. Oyster is this bird's main diet. The next talk will be the lesser adjutant. Now this is the lesser adjutant. It's actually a bit, it's a rare one. It is all one of the members of the order of Leptoptilus. Leptoptilus means the order of adjutants. There are 3 species in it. Only one species can be seen in Sri Lanka. It's the lesser adjutant. The other 2 species are the greater adjutant and the marabou stork. Now, I have to tell you, I know the marabou stork and the greater adjutant cannot be seen in Sri Lanka, but there are some specialty of them too, because the marabou stork is the largest species of stork in the world. It's actually about, if you take its overall height, it's actually come to about 1.68 meters. Imagine how tall is that bird. I'm pretty sure it's taller than me. So it's very large bird, the marabou stork. It's actually a relative to the lesser adjutant, and it is also one of the largest, flying birds. Now the one you can see in Sri Lanka is called the lesser adjutant. There's many ways to distinguish these two, because marabou stork and great adjutant have a neck pouch. Oh, come on, sorry. A neck. There's a pouch like, there's a sac like organ in the end of their neck. but the lesser adjutant doesn't have it. And if you take their feeding methods, lesser adjutant find its own food. It find by hunting, going along streams, while the other two species, the greater adjutant and the marabou stork, goes on scavenging. They just find out rubbish and dead animals to eat. And there's another specialty in this bird. This is actually the heaviest bird of Sri Lanka, and it is also the second largest bird. Uh, it's not the largest bird, but it's still the heaviest bird. Uh, I think because this bird is actually more muscular than the largest bird. Largest bird is just slender. Now I'll show you the largest one, the black-necked stork. Now, now this bird actually have a special place in Sri Lanka because this is the largest bird of Sri Lanka. It's not the heaviest bird. The lesser adjutant, the one I mentioned earlier, is the heaviest bird of Sri Lanka, but this one is the largest. So this one is actually 1.6 meters tall. Height of actually not 1.6, 1.5. It's not that tall. So this one is also very tall stork, very tall one. And this one is actually very rare in Sri Lanka. It is thought to be resident, but no nests have been found to date. Now, this bird can be only seen, in the eastern side of Sri Lanka. If you take, the best places to see them is the Kumara National Park and the Yala National Park. It's the most famous national park of Sri Lanka. Now, the other storks I'm going to mention are actually very rare. Actually, they are vagrant. Rarely migrate. Vagrant means birds that rarely migrate to a country. Now, this is the white. Sorry. Stork. All right. Now, this is also another type of stork in Sri Lanka, but very rare. It's almost very rare bird. Actually, rarely seen it. Only about 5 sightings is seen from this bird in Sri Lanka, but it's very very common in the rest of the world. You can see many of them in India if you go there. This bird is kind of some people thinks that some open bills are actually this white stork, but there's many ways. You should just pay attention to its beak very well. You can easily distinguish the two. The other one and the last one, the black stork. Now this is also a vagrant one, like the white stork. It's rarely migrates to Sri Lanka, and about only 2 sightings have been reported from this the stork. So it's very rare, and you only have a very small chance to photograph one of these in Sri Lanka. So there are these types of storks in Sri Lanka, and if you have more questions, you can send them to the chat box. I think if you have more questions, you can just send them. Yeah, if you have more questions, you can send them to the chat box. It's okay. You can just send not just questions about marshlands, but also about other birds. If you have any questions, you can If you have any questions about other birds, not just birds related to marshlands, just send it to us. So I think there's no more questions for today. Okay, then that's it for today, and thank you everyone for joining. You know, uh, it's great that many people joined today. You know, than our previous meetings. So our greatest pleasure for you guys. Just if you know any, some other friends of yours who is interested in ornithology and bird photography, please let them know about this group too. They might join it too. So in next week we will do about savanna grasslands, and it will be done by Sandev Visujit. And so until then, goodbye everyone.